I once got paid $5,000 for 1 minute's worth of work. And in this video, I'm going to tell you how I did it. I'm going to show you how you can do it. And then I'm going to tell you why I would never, ever, ever do it again. My name's Mark Hay. I'm a podcaster. I'm an influencer. 10 years ago, we'll just jump right into it. 10 years ago, I hosted a talk show on Snapchat. It was a big popular app back then. I think it still is. But back then, it was just popping about 10 years ago. All the kids were downloading it. They were sending photos back and forth, naughty photos that disappeared after after you viewed them. And Snapchat started to become more of a creative outlet. And since a lot of people were on Snapchat and using it for business and using it for social media and using it for marketing, I decided to jump in and try my hand at it. And pretty soon, I became a Snapchat superstar. And that's not just me bragging. That's not me. It's not me patting myself on the back. Those aren't my words. Those are the words of Business Insider magazine. Business Insider magazine, they caught wind of my Snapchat talk show and my popularity on the app. And they wrote this big article about me, how a 40-year-old radio DJ from Florida became a Snapchat star. All right, maybe I added super. But, superstar, star. When they wrote the article, I was a star. Later on, I became a superstar. Just take my word for it. Anyway, this is a big article, too. This article came out, and they talked about all the celebrities that I interviewed. They talked about how I created this amazing new platform on Snapchat, the talk show. It was called Talk and Snap. You can see this was my holiday episode. Here I was interviewing. This was Curtis Laapour. He was huge on Vine at the time. Really big celebrity. I interviewed musicians, Kevin Jonas, Flo Rida, a whole bunch of people that appeared on my Snapchat talk show. And when this article came out, things really changed for me. And that's when my life really went from being just a radio and TV host to being a full-time social media influencer. In fact, after this article, that's when I kind of shifted from full-time radio host, part-time influencer to part-time radio host, full-time influencer. And I found the majority of my day, the majority of my energy, and most importantly, the majority of my money was all centered around social media and influencing. And this was 10 years ago. But after this article came out, I got a lot of attention. I started getting flown around the country. I was invited to speak. I was invited to do Snapchat seminars. I went to Las Vegas for a couple nights. And I spoke to a bunch of business owners about how they too could use Snapchat to promote whatever it is they wanted to promote. And then I got a phone call from an agency that represented a big brand. And this big brand wanted me to do a Snapchat story for them. And they were wondering, how much did I charge for a Snapchat story? Now, I'd never charged anybody for a Snapchat story. I had no idea how much to charge for a Snapchat story. So I said to the guy from the agency, well, what do you usually pay somebody for a Snapchat story? And we went back and forth. We negotiated. He talked to the brand. And at the end of the day, they offered me $5,000 for 6 Snapchat stories. Yeah, $5,000 for 6 Snapchat stories. And a Snapchat story back then was 10 seconds. So if you do the math, you've got 6 times 10 seconds equals 60 seconds, which is 1 minute. And for those 60 seconds or those 6 10-second stories, they were going to pay me $5,000. So I was earning $5,000 for 1 minute's worth of work. And at first I thought to myself, this can't be real. They want me to record six 10-second clips, post them on my Snapchat, and they're going to give me $5,000. It was real. I posted the clips. They sent me the money. And that was it. The brand deal was complete. And it was the first time I ever got paid for my social media content. And it was the first time I was introduced to brand deals. And it was really when I started, like I said, shifting from, hey, this radio gig's pretty good, but this Snapchat stuff, this social media stuff could really be huge. And then I started investigating YouTube and Facebook and Periscope and pretty much every app that came out. I was on TikTok before it was TikTok. It was called Musical.ly back then. That's how long I've been on social media. But all of these things started to get me more and more brand deals. And after that first $5,000, I got another $5,000 deal. Then I got a $10,000 deal. Then I was covering conventions. And during the 2016 convention, this was fantastic. Cleveland.com hired me to come out to the 2016 Republican National Convention. They paid for me to fly first class to Cleveland. They put me up for the entire week. They gave me a guided tour. They bought me dinners. They took me to a place where you could get Fruit Loops on a hot dog. It's like a Cleveland thing. I don't know. It's like a Cleveland thing. And then, of course, they paid me money. It was really a fantastic and a lucrative side hustle for a very long time. But here's the kicker about brand deals. With brand deals, you need to keep selling yourself on brand deals. And you either work with an agency or you work with a brand directly. People reach out to you. And eventually, it's less of a creative endeavor and more of a job. It's less of a creative endeavor and more of trying to find prospects, trying to find companies that would be interested, having meetings with companies, having Zoom calls. Sometimes you'd have to write up a proposal and send it in, and then the proposal will get denied. And it became a lot of extra work, a full-time job to just try to get these brand deals in place. And that's what influencers did. That's what a lot of influencers still do. A lot of influencers seek out brand deals because they think that's the best way to make money. But it's not. That's the old school influencer way to make money. There's a new way that I call the golden age influencer model. And I'll tell you about that in just a second. First, let me tell you about my Snapchat talk show and how I grew it to a place where I had big brands paying me $5,000 for just 1 minute's worth of work. What I did was, and again, I wish I had some of the old snaps, but I think I burned them all. I don't know if you can burn a snap, but whatever it was, I got rid of it. Snapchat, for those of you that don't remember or just aren't aware of it, was unique because not only could you take a photo of yourself or anything else, but you could draw on it. And a lot of people became really popular because they were amazing artists. They were these really great digital artists, and they could create these amazing pieces of art on these photos, and that's how they got hundreds of thousands of followers. Well, when I downloaded Snapchat, I tried to do that myself. But what I forgot at the time was I'm a sucky artist. Like, I'm horrible. I couldn't draw anywhere near as well as these people could draw, and I didn't have the time to teach myself. So after failing to gain traction, after creating these really weird pieces of artwork that just didn't do anything, I decided I wasn't going to use Snapchat for artwork anymore. I mean, there were tons of people more talented than I was doing that. I was going to do what I knew how to do. And because I was a radio and TV talk show host at the time, I decided that I was going to use my phone and use Snapchat to create a talk show. And that's when I created Talk and Snap. And the rest is history. Now, this is a great concept that people use today. I still use it with my podcast, and I teach people in my Golden Age Influencers group to use it for their podcasts and their social media. And basically, the concept is clout jacking. What I did as a talk show host, or what I did when I created Talk and Snap, was I sought out the biggest, most popular Snapchat stars I could. Why? Because I knew they had huge audiences. And I wrote to them and I said, hey, I have the only talk show on Snapchat, which wasn't a lie. It was true, as far as I knew. And I'd love to interview you. Well, here's the thing about celebrities. They love to get interviewed on talk shows. And so I would get these big celebrities to come on my Snapchat. I would interview them. And then what I would do is say, hey, the show turned out great. It's live right now. If you enjoy it, perhaps you could share it with all your fans so that, they could see you're amazing. They love you already. They're going to love watching this. And it's kind of it's kind of like an ego stroke. It's kind of free publicity for them, but really it works amazingly well. Look, here's me over here, right? Like, I remember one of my first big interviews was Curtis Laapour. This is me. I had maybe, I had a handful of fans, people that knew me from the radio, not many, And then over here is Curtis Laapour. And Curtis Laapour was a huge Vine star. He had millions of followers on Vine. When he started on Snapchat, his Snapchat followers followed him. So he just had tons and I could just sit here for days drawing these little fans that circled around Curtis Laapour's orbit. And so when Curtis Laapour was interviewed on my show, I said to him, hey, would you do me a solid? Would you just, the show's turned out great. Thank you for coming on. Would you let your fans know about it so they could come watch it? And Curtis Laapour did exactly that. In fact, there's a screenshot of it, I think, in the article. Let me show you. This is him. Yeah, this is him right down here. He posted, check out my first Snapchat interview, add Mark K. Do you know what happens when a guy who has millions and millions of followers goes on his Snapchat and says, add Mark K? A large portion of those followers come over to Mark K. And what happened was I saw an influx. I saw an influx of people joining me and following me. And then I did another story with another famous Snapchatter, and they did the same thing. They shared it on their story, and I got lots of traction, and another one, and over again. Every week I was adding by clout jacking, by stealing the audiences of my guests. And pretty soon I had one of the largest audiences on Snapchat. It was tough for me to find people that had larger audiences than I did. And I didn't have to go out and look for them anyway. People were coming to me. They were calling me. They were asking me for help. It was really a phenomenal time. And that's a great way. That's a great way to grow your audience. But again, if you get into brand deals or if you get into selling your audience to advertise to somebody else, there's a lot of negatives. And I don't like that model, so I don't use it anymore. What I've done is I've gone from being an influencer to becoming a golden age influencer. And let me explain to you real quick the difference. When you look at an influencer is somebody who has a large following or just a specific following. It doesn't have to be large. You may have a dedicated following for fly fishermen in Maine. And maybe there's a company in Maine that would like to sell a bunch of bait, or I guess not bait, I guess you use flies, and a lot of fishing gear to fly fishermen in Maine. Well, all of a sudden you're a pretty important influencer to them. So it's either you have a niche audience or a large audience. And then, like I said, you go out and you find people and they give you some money. Now, the problem with that is they give you money one time and you advertise their products to your audience and they get the money from those products that are advertised. And let's say they give you $5,000 and you advertise that company. I think one of my first brand deals was JBL, the speaker company, and they gave me $5,000. I advertised that to my audience, and I don't know what they made, but I had a huge audience. I had millions of people follow me on Snapchat. And if millions of people went to JBL and even 1% of them bought a $100 speaker, which is what we were selling at the time, I realized I was getting shafted. I thought $5,000 was a lot of money, but JBL was making hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's why brands love brand deals, because they're getting millions of people to go to their website and spend money, and then they give the influencer a little tiny bit of it. So I thought to myself, what if I became a golden age influencer? And I just did a brand deal with myself. What if instead of taking money up front, I just sold my own products, and by selling my own products, I got to keep all of the money. I wasn't just making $5,000. I was making whatever the brand would be making, because I now am the brand. And this is a concept that is fantastic. And this is how influencers are really succeeding in the new golden age. Instead of doing a brand deal for a one-time payment, what they're doing is they're creating their own brands, their own products, their own services, their own offers, building up an audience by clout jacking or interviewing people or just putting out great content, and then selling that audience their own products, keeping 100% of the profit. So yes, 10 years ago when I made $5,000 for 1 minute's worth of work, it was great. But now I don't do that anymore. I create my own content, I create my own offers, I create my own products, and I keep all of the money. And the best thing is, you could do the same thing as long as you have one of these. And in my Golden Age Influencers group, I teach you exactly how to do that. I teach you not only how to create great content that builds an audience, but also how to create products and services and offers out of nothing with absolutely no money. If you don't have a product or an offer or a service to give somebody, I will teach you 5 ways that you can create a product or an offer or a service or all of those within 20 minutes of watching the video. It's really an incredible time that we live in. The technology is there for you to create your own books and products, your own merchandise line, your own college, university, school, whatever it is you want. You can create something, you can become the brand, and you can cut a brand deal with yourself and make way more than $5,000 in way less time. If you're interested, there's a link in the bio to my Golden Age Influencers group, and you can learn a little bit more about us. You can join. Also, if you're interested in learning more about this process, I would watch this video right here that I created. I don't know if you've seen it already, but if you haven't, this is the video you should watch next to learn more about this process of becoming a Golden Age influencer. And then click the link in the bio to join our Golden Age Influencer Network.